The pronunciation of that is Bheinn. Lur means a hoof. There's no doubt about that. The B becomes a V sound and is written BH. Bheinn.
Now, the internal combustion engine has a lot to answer for, believe me, because now you can just pile into a car, get out, climb a hill, and you're back home before Coronation Street. But happily for wilderness lovers, there are still a few Munros that are so remote and inaccessible that you really are going to have to make an effort to get there. For instance, Larvin, which is the most westerly mainland Munro, is situated in the beautiful region of Knoydart. This is where we've decided to start the great Knoydart expedition from. It's Kinlochhourn, a beautiful place, and what this involves is a 5-mile walk along quite a rough track to Barrisdale Bay in Knoydart, where I'm afraid we have to camp. There is no choice if the bothy's full, but don't worry about me, I'm sure you're not. I'm not a seasoned camper, but Ross, the researcher with the beard who is a seasoned camper, is with me all the way, I assure you, to show me the ropes.
Guy lines.
Guy lines, whatever. The first section of this walk is delightfully straightforward. Simply follow the path from Kinlochhourn along the lochside to Barrisdale Bay. There are numerous ways into Knoydart for a backpacking and Munro bagging spree. You could take the boat from Mallaig to Inverie on the other side of the peninsula, walk in from Glen Desiree or even Glen Finnan further south. The choices are endless and will have you drooling over the map for hours. Well, the walk along Loch Hourn side is so beautiful. It would make a fabulous low-level walk if you didn't want to climb any mountains. But only 10 minutes away from where we started, you get your first view of Larvin. And when you see that fantastic mountain there, it would take great strength of character to resist it. Well, as you can see, the path doesn't always stick exactly to the shoreline. There's a bit of ascending and descending to be done. But it's quite good to get this bit of height. It's a great vantage point to look back at the view. If you can see that small house down there, just make that out. That's actually built or renovated in the site of an old 19th century pub called Skeary. And that was where E. Robertson, the Reverend E. Robertson no less, the first Munroist, went in to try and get a bed for the night, but was not impressed. He said the rooms were damp and dirty and there was no beer or whiskey. Imagine a beer or whiskey in a Highland pub. What did they have? Bacardi and Coke and Babycham. This is the most westerly section of the old Caledonian forest in mainland Scotland, and it's genetically unique as it evolved in isolation from the great expanse of trees that once covered the country. Of course, you could always get into Knoydart by boat if you managed to get hold of one, but remember to check the tides. This is us finally arrived at Barrisdale Bay after that beautiful walk. This is where we're going to camp for the night. And I have to say, the last time I stood on this beach was about 11 or 12 years ago. I walked in from Inverie, which is over by Mallaig, and it felt very much like a wilderness. It doesn't feel like a wilderness to me anymore. Maybe that's just my problem. There's lots of boats buzzing around. There's holiday cottages the other side of Loch Hourn full of people having a great time, admittedly, and there's certainly lots of walkers. What cannot be spoiled, though, is the majesty of Larvin behind me, which, weather permitting, we will be climbing tomorrow. What kind of tent is that, anyway?
It's a camping tent.
Very funny. You could do with a hoover. Have you tried hoovering it?
Hoovering it?
You can get cordless hoovers.
Cracking day. Oi.
I don't care. Just 5 more minutes, eh? Oh, what's that? Smells too bad. Oh, that's great.
Brilliant.
Well, I have to to say that was a pretty painless night's camping. Apart, that is, from Ross Murray speaking in his sleep. You can only take so much of a man screaming at Natasha Kinski to leave him alone. However, this is a fantastically convenient way to start larving if you're camping here at Barrisdale or using the bothy, because that's the very start of the stalker's path up the mountain. And if you're walking in from Kinlochhourn trying to do it in a day and it's low tide, you can walk straight across the bay if you're prepared to wade a bit and take those boots off. It's going to be a very long, hard, hot, sticky climb today. It's 3,343 feet, sea level start obviously, but we don't mind. We're not going to stay here and paddle because we're strong, tough mountaineers. After crossing the bay and climbing the Stalker's Path, I routed the classic horseshoe traverse of Corrigorchel, a high-level ridge traverse all the way with many ups and downs. Well, it's quite a good path up from Barrisdale Bay. Although a long, hot pool, I should say, I've worked up a bigger sweat than a sun reader sitting an IQ test. But this has got us here now to Corrigorchel, a beautiful corrie, from where you get a view of that fantastic ridge leading to the Munro Larvin, which you can just see is the dark peak behind me. Now, a few years ago, Knoydart was rather controversially up for sale, and the Ministry of Defence nearly bought this piece of land. Luckily, that didn't happen, so we don't have squaddies using butterflies as target practice. Instead, this piece of land was bought by the John Muir Trust, who are dedicated to retaining wild land without interfering with the livelihoods of the people who live here. Thank heavens, because this is a fantastically beautiful and tranquil spot. The first section of the ridge is a straightforward grassy walk, but just before the summit of Stobisherickel there comes a daunting and rather intimidating